show here on the Joy News channel. Now, the Mahama government is set to organize a National Education Forum, a platform to critically analyze the current education system of Ghana and propose solutions to address the gaps. This morning, we'll do a throwback focusing on how far we have come with Ghana's education sector, what was done, what real enhancement and reviews are needed, if there is any. To do this, we have the privilege of having in the studio former minister, the immediate past Minister of Education, Dr. Yaw Adutwum, who has been at the forefront of major decisions in our quest for quality education in the country. Doc, pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much for that.
As well.
As well.
Okay.
That was great.
Okay. Now, if you look back, what do you make of your time at the Ministry of Education?
Let me first of all say a very good morning and a happy birthday to all your viewing and listening audience. And I don't know why you invited me on Valentine's Day of all this in the whole year. This is the day you invited me.
And it's good you have a red tie on too.
I always do the red. So I just want to first of all thank God for giving me the opportunity to serve my nation.
Okay.
8 years at the Ministry of Education, and also to thank the former president and Adanko Akufo-Addo for inviting me to be part of his government. It was a great opportunity, a wonderful opportunity to serve my nation. About 3 days ago, I went to a school in my constituency.
Okay.
The moment I went there, they told me that morning, students were asked to write who has inspired, a story of who has inspired them.
Okay.
There's a student by name, his first name is also very unique, called Yawa.
Okay, wow.
Yawa had written that the person who inspires him the most is Dr. Yaw Adutwum.
Oh, okay.
Little did she know that I was going to show up at the school. So when I was saying, Yawa was writing about you.
That's a beautiful coincidence.
Yeah, beautiful coincidence. They showed me what she had written.
Okay.
And it really touched me to know that a child that you don't know will just feel like you have inspired me to be a great individual. One day I want to be like you. This is what I take away from my work at the ministry, that there are children across the country who feels inspired like Yawa. And there are others around the country who have grown up at places with less means and see my story of how I grew up and became who I had become, to feel inspired that one day they can even do more than what Dr. Yaw Adutwum has done. So when I look back at those moments where you are making an impact on the lives of many people. Many people see hope through your story. And that to me is the most significant thing, apart from all the other things that we may have done. The bottom line is that somebody like Yawa feels that you have inspired me. And that to me is the most important thing.
Okay. So, yes, a lot of people I'm sure are inspired like Yawa. But looking back, what would you say were your achievements as a Minister of Education? When you came in, we all heard what you said. You wanted to make education, the way you had seen it in the America. You had run a school there, and you thought that education could be made more practical than it is. What would you say were your biggest achievement as a minister?
I would say that when I became Minister for Education, I was invited by Harvard University. They have a program that guides and mentors education ministers. And the first workshop, they asked all of us to create what's called legacy statement. My legacy statement was to make Ghana the best nation in STEM education, one of the best in the world in STEM education. And when I reflect upon the legacy statement that I shared with the University of Harvard and see that we're able to do it. See, STEM has always been something that we hear presidents talk about, the 60-40, famous 60-40 ratio of 60% of students at the tertiary in the STEM-related fields and 40% in the humanities. And unfortunately, it had been, for the most part, lip service. Because I don't seem to understand how you have about 14% of your students in the high school enrolled in science. But when they get to the university, you expect 60% of them to become science-related students. I mean, it was just a talk. So we had to begin to take a look at what is going on around the world. And of course, I always say I'm one of the luckiest education ministers in the world, having taught in the classroom, gotten opportunity to develop schools in America, that kind of experience, and doing a PhD in education policy and administration. So what I, through under the leadership of the president, looked at was STEM education, the key to the future of Ghana's transformation. Not just an education, but we are talking about how does education change the fortunes of your country. So if your sense of urgency is the transformation of Ghana, and you happen to be the education minister, you are looking at what are the gaps. Because in education, you have to look at access, you have to look at the quality of the education system, and then look at the relevance of the education system. When the education system is not relevant to the socio-economic transformation of your country, it's education to nowhere. All the students can pass the exams and people jubilate that their children have passed the exam. But if you happen to be the education minister, you are concerned about, am I producing the people that can really champion transformation of Ghana? So that is what led us to STEM education. The emphasis on STEM was to make sure that in this 21st century, in this fourth industrial revolution, are we going to create a competitive economy? Are we really going to change the fortunes of Ghana? So when you hear STEM education, it's not just children coming to school. When you see them doing robotics, you see them flying drones, you see them doing things that we've never done before. It's creating the next generation workforce in the 21st century, in the fourth industrial revolution, who will lead the transformation of Ghana. And that was what my focus on about. If you look at Vietnam is making great strides in industrialization.
Okay.
Now, Vietnam has 93 million population. They produce 100,000 engineers every year. Now, Vietnam is the toast of East Asia. Every industrial giants are flocking to Vietnam. In fact, the last time I checked, Samsung has its largest manufacturing plant anywhere in the world in Vietnam.
Okay.
Now, Ghana, with over 30 million population, in a very good year has 7,000 engineers graduating. If you look ratio and proportion, we should be doing over 30,000
engineers.
Yes. Because engineering have so many fields. Software engineering.
Let me take you back to the point about STEM. Now, when you refer to the man who went to the Chinese leader who went to Japan and came back to China, he tackled the teachers, right? Because he said he wanted to change how it is done. But I didn't see you do much of.
Maybe you didn't hear me talk about it.
Okay.
I'm so happy to tell you that the current Director General of Ghana Education Service, Professor Davis, he was one person that I tasked to develop a bachelor's degree in STEM education at the University of Cape Coast, and he did.
Okay.
So he put it together, brought it to me for a review. He had done a review with all his professors, and today I'm happy that Cape Coast has submitted, at the time I was living, they have submitted their curricula for training of STEM teachers to GTech. We also have 2 STEM colleges of education that were building at the time I was living, one at Karaga and one at Tepa in Ashanti region. And this was to train the next generation of STEM teachers in Ghana. So yes, we were seriously looking at how do you train. And also, We have a number of projects that were ongoing.
But I thought that would have been your first focus, to train the teachers to handle the...
You see, when you are Ghana, you don't have a lot of time.
Okay.
You do the two at the same time. So, for example, there were teachers who were being trained through Televic, which was a funding regime that we have from Belgium. They were training teachers across the country. TTEL, which is funded through MasterCard Foundation, was also training teachers across the country. So teachers who are now in their jobs currently were being trained. But in addition to that, we needed to lay a strong foundation to bring in more, to train them so that they can really do the job that they were supposed to do.
Okay. All right. So how many STEM schools do we have now?
We have the freestanding new ones that we built were about, I think, 11 of them at the time that I was leaving office. But we also have STEM centers.
Completed.
Yes.
And
we also have
ready to be used.
Ready to be used.
Okay.
But like Abomosu in Eastern Region, Kwase in Bono, Bosomtri Girls, the ones, we have other ones like Pasempe in the Northeast. So there are a number of them across the country, but we also have STEM centers in existing schools, like Goso, for example, has one that was about to be operationalized. So when you build a STEM center, you set up a center with all the equipment. Accra High has one, which had been operationalized even about 2 years ago.
Okay.
It has started, it had all the STEM tools and equipment, and students at Accra High, as I speak with you, can take a course in engineering at the high school level. And the one unique thing about the STEM centers is the fact that we offer opportunity for students in the neighborhood. That's what you see here. For students in the neighborhood to come to the center and do software programming, and they were doing Scratch and other programs there. So it's not just for the high school students, but I wanted to create that pipeline really from the lower levels all the way running to the high school. So the STEM centers were not just for the high school, but also for the entire neighborhood students who come there and do Scratch and other. So when you look at that, it's not just, these are the high school students who are doing robotics and doing engineering and all that, but also the local students from the basic schools can get the opportunity to come here. So there was a combination of the two, that you have new schools being built, but also have STEM being infused into existing schools. So if you go to those existing schools, like engineering center that we did in partnership with the old boys of Presec. If you go to the higher engineering block, which we were about to operationalize, and then we left government. But so I hope that there will be a continuation, so that if you go to Presec, you can start engineering at the high school level. You don't want to wait till you go to the university. You catch them young. They get excited. So they don't apply to medicine, and if they don't get in, then they go to engineering. If you get a student who is really excited about engineering from high school, he will become a better engineer than the person who didn't want to do engineering, but because he didn't get medicine, then he found himself in engineering. One of the things talking about that I'm excited about is what we were able to create called a pre-engineering program. You see, when I talk about the 60-40, and you don't have enough students who have done science, that means you can never get to the 60-40 unless you bring some innovation to the process. So what we did, which was profound, was that we established a pre-engineering program. These are for students who did not do science in high school but are desirous of becoming engineers. So what you do with that is that they go to, there are two universities that offer that. Now others are joining in, UMAT and Pentecost University. We incentivize them through a grant program to do it. So when you go to UMAT, this year for example, I'm told there was a high demand for the pre-engineering. They accepted only 300 students from the large pool that applied. And the cutoff point was aggregate 9. So they have students with 6 A1, going to do pre-engineering from general arts, from visual arts, from home economics. All of them are moving, and these are students who are determined to become engineers. So it was my idea that don't block these students from getting to the engineering space. They may have not been counseled well at the high school. They got into general arts, they got into visual arts, they got into home economics. Don't stop them if they have the desire, because these are the people who become your innovators. So we open the floodgates of engineering to this new group of students who are desirous but did not do science. And then they have a rigorous one-year program. And in this one-year program, they are doing physics, they are doing chemistry, they are doing mathematics, and introduction to engineering. At the end of the year, if they pass the examinations set by the university, then they get a chance to enroll in level 100 engineering, whether it's civil engineering, mechanical engineering, computer engineering, any aspect of engineering, they get the opportunity to enter that space. The whole idea is that for us to transform our nation, we have to begin to take a look at what other nations did and do same, so that we can get to that destination.
So glad that we're talking about STEM. One of the things that you were doing, which was going to aid STEM, was the One Student, One Tablet initiative.
Yes.
But how did that end? The students didn't get it.
Oh no, it's not true. They're going very well. In fact, when I visited my school in the Bosumtwe girls, they had just received their tablet. They were being trained by experts from
school, so they will be given professional.
No, it's across the country. It's across the country. All first-year students have been prioritized because first-year students have e-books, and the e-books have been downloaded onto the tablets.
When did this project start?
It started like 6 months before we left office, the distribution, and it's continuing. As I speak with you, distribution is going on.
So it
has not been stopped.
Schools had it before you left office?
When I left, I think there were about 200 to 300 schools that have received it.
Okay.
Yeah, but now it's ongoing.
The cross-check from the schools will get to know?
Oh no, you get to know. No, if you cross-check with the minister, you get to know. It's ongoing. It's going all over the place because, you see, we have a new curriculum that is being implemented now, and we were fortunate to have been given funding from MasterCard Foundation to develop the books for the students. And these are all e-books. So without the tablets, they are going to be hampered. So the distribution is ongoing. It's going very well. And the whole idea is that students are also, teachers are being trained to use AI assessment portals.
Okay.
What that means is that when the student writes an essay, it can be graded for them with AI. So assessment is instant.
Okay.
And you have teachers getting feedback themselves and giving feedback to the students through the assessment portal.
Now they also had issues with their laptops.
You see, these laptops, they have issues. I'm not sure in terms of what the issues were, because I know there was a system in place for repairs to be done if there's a breakdown. But every teacher got their laptop before we left.
Every teacher?
Yes. Yes. You can check in with the unions.
Every single teacher?
Every one of them. You can check in. You can check in with them and it will be confirmed that everyone got it. So the most important thing for me is that there's now training for the teachers who are going to be teaching using these devices at the high school level. And the training is ongoing. Many places you go in, even GES, as I speak with you, have people going out throughout the country to see how things are going. I don't want to be speaking for them. I'm no longer there. So I don't want to go into that space. Okay. I think we leave that discussion to the current administration instead of preempting what they are doing.
But the teachers also spoke about the quality of the laptop. How much did one laptop cost?
No, let me tell you, I don't have that information. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. I don't have that. If you talk to GES, they'll be able to give you more information on that.
But in terms of the quality of the laptop too?
But I tell you this, I'm no longer the minister. Don't put me in a situation where I'm talking for a ministry that I no longer so pretend over. I thought we were coming here to talk about what we did. And
exactly. But this was something you did.
Well,
the laptops then go.
at the time I was leaving, they had the laptops and it was working.
Okay.
So if after I left, there's something, I don't want to be speaking for it. I don't think it's fair.
Okay, all right. One would think that, I mean, well, that was a great achievement. So we're looking at, once we are getting complaint of the quality of laptops, and of course...
No, you can always follow up. So far as I'm concerned, the laptops were given and they were working when I was leaving. If after I left, there are issues, I will not be a good person to speak to it.
Were there guarantees or warranties to help them?
Of course, any project like that, you have warranties.
Okay. All right. Now, there's been a lot of controversies about the exact number of people who benefited from that wonderful policy. I always say it's wonderful because if I had not gotten World Vision to pay my school fees, I would not have been able to finish basic, finish SS before I even go to the university. So I liked it. But now, as to the exact number of students who benefited, we don't know because there's different figures out there. You were the minister. How many students benefited?
I think we have issued a statement on this, but just for the benefit of your audience and yourself, you haven't seen it. The first time this issue came up was through Ministry of Finance. Their accounting for expenditure indicated the number in terms of first year how much they funded, the second year how many students they funded, the third year how many students they funded. So arithmetically, they were looking at how many funding units that they had done from a certain period to a certain period. And that arithmetic is what gave the 5.7 figure coming from the budget reading on the floor of Parliament. Okay. But you should also know that when you're dealing with not the funding units, but you're dealing with beneficiaries, if you are not doing a one-year program, people are benefiting a number of times in order for them to be fully classified as beneficiaries. Okay. So if you are counting the funding units and you are saying, okay, in our budget, 2017, we funded 360,000. 2018, we funded 700,000. That is in the budget. Then you go to the third year and say, in the third year, the number increased to, let's say, 1.1 million. So 300, 700, 1.1, this is the total number of funding units. Okay. However, when you do that, you are presuming that it's a one-time funding. So if you are dealing with graduate students who are going to university for 1 year, you'll be right. Okay. Because you fund them once and they are gone. You fund them once and you don't repeat. But if you do calculation based on a high school program that way, you are literally doing a double counting. Okay. Because the student who benefited first year that you funded at 360,000, he's included in your second year 700. And then the 700 is then included in your third year 1.1. So the best thing to do, instead of adding the 360, the 700, the one, is to take the 1.1. Okay. Because that is cumulative. Yeah. Okay. So this is what we realized that the Ministry of Finance had done. And in fact, it was even before we saw it, some other CSOs had gone to check because they thought something fishy was taking place. That if you are adding this and adding this and adding, so are you receiving funding for the double counting, or are you receiving funding for the third year numbers? So when those calculations were done, we realized that the funding in terms of beneficiaries should be based on the third year number, and that you should not be counting the first year and second year, even though it sits on your books. Even though it sits on your books at the finance ministry, that this was the number that you funded, the number that you funded, the number you funded. So you can use that for your calculation. Okay. But it should not define the number in terms of ultimate beneficiaries. Okay. So it was this arithmetic error that showed that then found expression at the meeting. But quickly, after some time, we called and said, no, something is going on here. So if you look at the numbers, then when we did the reconciliation, that is when we were able to see that, oh, this was an arithmetic error. So even in the 2024 budget, they then listed the numbers break down so that everybody will see. But it's not as if the education ministry was funded based on this number and the actual number was this. So if you go, the ministry numbers will tell you that there was nothing untoward. It wasn't any situation where somebody was trying to get more money and then say that this were the number of students that were funded. So I think it was some accounting thing, error that happened. And unfortunately, it took us some time to discover that, when at education, we should not be using the numbers as so articulated from the finance ministry.
So from your ministry, what was the number?
3.5.
Oh, 3.5. Oh, so okay, that means that you agree with what our research team put out there, 3.5 million. But from your experience, what you do know, as a minister who has implemented this, I mean, first 4 years as deputy, second 4 years as the minister, would you then agree with people who suggest that those who can, we should allow them pay?
I think I wouldn't want to preempt. This new government have not been there for too long. I don't want to go into that space. They have set up a committee. I think it's better you allow them to settle in to understand the issues and then lead their own discussions.
But it would be bad to hear from a former Minister of Education.
I want to give them time to settle in. We came and understood clearly that our policy was just like pre-tertiary education policy anywhere in the world. Go to America, they are the ones who first introduced this. Secondary education is for all. After all, the so-called those who can are the taxpayers, the chief directors of ministries, headmasters, people who are being taxed in this country at a very high level. They are the ones that will say, government is going to spend, but we are not spending on you. You don't create a more cohesive country that way. That was our policy for 8 years, and we did it. So I'm not here to prescribe any pathway for any new government. That was our policy, and we felt that everybody should benefit. So that's why I say I don't want to offer any suggestion, but I'll tell you what we did as a government and why we did what we did. That I think the taxpayers should also benefit from the taxes that they are paying.
So what brought about the many challenges that bedeviled the policy?
I won't say bedeviled. I think
characterized.
I'll tell you. The opportunity that was presented to this country was the fact that we're now educating children for 21st century. You see, you cannot overlook the benefit and then jump to the challenges. When you look at this youth and what they were doing, coming from backgrounds that they couldn't have had a chance, now they had a chance. You can't talk about transformation of a country if education is not equitable. We had run a country for many years where there was something called cutoff. And for those who did not know, because their children were not affected by it, every year the ministry or the Ghana Education Service will take a look at how many spaces were available in secondary schools. And then based on that, they will set the aggregate that qualifies you to enter a public senior high school. In some years, maybe I will be 28. If you get more than 20, you don't go. Sometimes maybe less. What that did to many families who could not afford that secondary education was not for them. And it got so bad that some parents began to see that they had to do something for their children. But the public school system said to them that you cannot come here. So that was why there was an emergence of private senior high schools all over the country. So when the public school rejects you, then you go to the private school. So the parents who could not afford were the ones that had to borrow to send their children to private schools. Because the public schools said to them, you don't come here anymore. You came to our public schools from kindergarten all the way to junior high. You were not prepared well. We don't want to see you. Go and find yourself a private school to attend. So when you look at the numbers, 100,000 students always were admitted but couldn't even get themselves together to go to secondary school because the resources were not there. You cannot talk about transforming your country when those who are disadvantaged are those that will shut the door in their face and tell them, you need not come here. When they don't come, their talent is lost to our nation. And when that talent is lost, maybe that will be the Einstein that we have missed. Because invariably, those from disadvantaged don't get good prep for the exams. And therefore, they may not do it, not because they are not smart, but because of the lack of preparations for the exams, they don't do well on the exams. And a child goes to school for 3 years and will take 1 week to examine him, and that determines his future. Consequently, something had to be done. And the government of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo decided that we have to open the floodgates of education to everyone. And when they come in, you have to give them intervention so that they can compete. A number of schools will tell you stories of students who came with a grade 30 and ended with less than grade 10 on the WASI. Because it's not because they were not smart, the background, the schools that they attended did not give them the opportunity to be competitive on the BEC. But when they come in, and see the environment, the excitement that I'm in school, they go to work. And a number of them end up doing very well in terms of their performance on the WASI and move on to great things.
The WASI performance is not merit, because you speak to some of the teachers and they tell you the quality in the senior high schools has dropped hugely.
How do you tell me quality has dropped when the same standards are being used in the assessment and they're doing better? Quality has dropped. No, it's not past questions. Quality has dropped. How do you define quality? Let me tell you one thing. There's a difference between, if you know education, we have what is called criterion reference test and a norm reference test. When you go to WASI, the exams measure mastery. So, when students are getting better performance, it cannot be that performance has dropped. If you are using a norm reference exam, you grade on the curve. So there are some years where somebody will get 70 and get A1, and if it's a non-reference test, some years somebody will get 60 and still get A1, because all of them didn't do well. So if we are using a non-reference test, you can make that assumption. Because you see, standards are from, but they are still getting the same grade because it's a non-reference exam. They are grading on the curve. But WASI is a criterion reference exam. It measures mastery, and performance is compared from year to year. When you look at BEC is a non-reference exam. You grade on the curve. WASI is not a non-reference exam.
Okay.
So when the quality falls, it will immediately reflect in the performance of the exam. But if I'm a teacher teaching at a category C school, my assumption about standards have fallen may come from the fact that in the previous year certain students were not allowed to come there, right? Because there was a cutoff. So I was not dealing with a certain group of students because they were not allowed to come in. Now with the removal of the cutoff, there are some students that are going to come there that may not have the same level of proficiency as those who are used to teach. Consequently, I may be right by saying the number of the students that I'm teaching, their levels are a bit low this time compared to those I was teaching the previous years. Because the previous years, you were getting only those with 28 or better. Now you can get somebody with 38. And that is why Ghana Education Service came up with a unique policy called intervention courses. What the intervention course is meant to do is to enable students whose performance are subpar to enroll in courses that are not necessarily high school level. So if it's mathematics and English, they are literally repeating the junior high school mathematics and English. That is what is done around the world. Okay. So essentially, the student who come in and is subpar is not left to sink or swim, but is given additional coursework in mathematics and English for them to catch up. So when you do that very well, then what happens to you is that those students who may not be at the level that student used to be years back still have an opportunity to improve on themselves because they might have gone to a school where they did not get the support that they needed. So you cannot do a cookie cutter mass education without intervention for those who are struggling. So for example, a student walks into a school, he's doing home economics, he walks into a management in living class, the teacher sees that this student cannot read proficiently. In other jurisdictions, you go to the intervention English class so that your English reading proficiency will move up before you may be asked to then take the full scope of courses. So if you don't...
Was this really what was happening, or it was on paper? Because some of the students even spent 3 weeks in school, 6 weeks, and they have to go back home.
No, it's not.
The double track. We had stories of students who report to school 2 months, they have to go back.
Never true.
Really?
You see, yes. You see, I wish I had I will send you the calendar for you to take a look at it. The calendar, it's still being implemented. It's not true. Let me tell you, this was, and I always talk about slash and burn politics. We, politicians, are our worst enemies. We will take an issue, bastardize it, for Ghanaians to hate it. And unless people come to appreciate it, they will still go by what my other colleague from Parliament was saying about it. Let me take a few minutes of your time. I don't know the time that we have. But you see, double track never was invented in Ghana. I was fortunate enough to have taught in the US system. In the year 1994, high schools in California moved from 3 years to 4 years with no facilities for the 4th year. Then they resorted to what we call double track or call year-round schools. All that you do is this. Instead of one cohort of students coming to the school, we divide them into 3. 1 stays at home, 2 go to school at any point in time. With that arrangement, schools that used to bring in 1,000 can now do 1,500. But in order for the 3 cohorts to fit, you make the school day longer and the school year shorter. So for example, instead of around the world, the standard is 180 days. I think GS last year was doing 185 days, for example, for students who are on single track. And by the way, as I speak with you, close to 70% of all students are on single track. All schools.
Close to 70%
are on single track. Schools are on single track. What does that mean? What it means is that they don't do double track. They don't do double track. When we started, it was about close to 50-50, about maybe 49 being double track. Now, with more schools being built, more classrooms being built in existing schools, the number had gone down. A school like Tama School used to be double track, is no longer double track. Okay? So the whole idea is that to get more students and also to reduce class sizes, what you do is divide the population into 3, have 2 of them there at a time, one at home. When you do that, you have increased enrollment, and you're also able to reduce even class sizes as a result of that intervention. But how do you make up for the lost hours since the school year is shorter? What you do is that you make the school day longer. Because in education, we talk about instructional hours and not instructional days. So instead of students going to school at 8 and closing at 2 or 2:30, now if they go at 8, they close at 4. So when you do that, you make up for the lost days with more hours. That is the basic underpinning of how you implement a double track regime.
Okay.
So, and in Ghana, the interesting thing was that double track was not implemented, unlike in the US where we did it based on lack of space in the schools. In the Ghanaian context, the major issue is lack of space in desirable schools, because we allow parents to choose.
So there were some schools that had the space, but students weren't there?
Yes, because so if you, there are a number of category C schools, people don't desire to go there. And we don't, because we don't have community-based secondary education. So you don't force people to go to a certain school. In other jurisdictions where there are community-based secondary education, you go to the school in your community. So in those cases, there will not be any school for the most part left where there are spaces and you don't have enough students. There are a number of schools across the country at the category C level with spaces. But you also have students and parents who want the best for their children, rightly so. I want Presec and I want Presec now. I want Wesley girls, I want Wesley girls now. What does that mean? The double track then allowed the opportunity for parents to have a shot at some of these high-performing schools. So if you look at double track schools, as I speak with you, there are many category A and limited number of category B schools that are double track. The rest of them are no longer double track. The children go to school at the beginning, all of them together, and they vacate all of them together. And that is the norm in Ghana as I speak with you.
But my question was to the effect that it got to a point parents couldn't plan, because the GES will release the timetable to the students are supposed to report. The next few moments, the students are supposed to come back home.
Well, I will tell you this. When you do this calendar issue, sometimes there can be some problem, no doubt about it. So I won't sit here and say there was no challenge. But I'm just saying how the system was working for the most part was what I have described to you. So for example, in some schools, when you don't have too many students maybe doing a certain subject, right? And you have 2 teachers. A number of times you have a situation where when one track is on vacation, because the ideal thing was that when the students were on vacation, the teachers go on vacation with them. But they go to a certain school that the headmaster may have made a judgment that because we have limited number of students enrolled in science, I have only 2 science teachers, and therefore I will use them when this track is off. So there are some teachers who were adversely affected in that manner, but it was not supposed to be that way. If you're a teacher and you are on track A, when students are on vacation, you have to also be on vacation, so that there's no extra burden on you. But sometimes as you implement, there can be some deviations from the norm. And no doubt there could have been some deviations from the norm. But the actual design, how it was supposed to work, was to increase enrollment in the desirable schools, and the schools that had challenges, you allowed them to do the single track. And they had more time to work with the students, because now their school day is longer and they have more school days, and therefore track C, most of your category C schools, almost all of them, category C, are single track.
Is that how come you couldn't achieve your target of eliminating double track before your tenure ends? Because the double track earlier, it wasn't even supposed to have been there for the entire 4 period of your first term.
Oh no, it's not true. We told the country, I remember the President Kufuor launching in Tamale. We gave the country up to 7 years.
Up to 7
years.
But
so yes,
didn't do it.
Yeah, definitely. It didn't end at the end of the 7 years. See, double track started in 2018, not the first year Yeah, so the 7 years was to end with our tenure.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because the first year actually was to end somewhere even after our tenure, because the first year we started in September 2017. September 2017, it wasn't double track. So you went to September 2018 before double track came in. When we saw the enrollment and the demand in the spaces, that is when we brought in double track to accommodate the growth in enrollment.
It also got to a point, feeding the kids was a huge problem. Why was it so?
Yeah, let me tell you, feeding children, look at it this way. You have this number of mouths to feed. There are times when a certain school may have a problem, and I'll commend headmasters. They were very creative and innovative, to the extent that when we even did the zonal distribution, if a certain school has challenge, they may go to another school that had a lot of food, and then they will batter among themselves for some time. So headmasters did a fantastic job. But I'll tell you, we've done it. We've done it. No school was shut down at the time. So,
but
we did
measurable food.
Not all the time, not always. I mean, I can't tell you, because sometimes when you hear food being stolen, the media, you heard it.
Oh yes, yes. Yeah.
So when you hear those things, what does it make you feel? When we work so hard to get food to schools and somebody's stealing it.
Yeah.
So that person who is stealing the food, what food are they going to use in feeding the children?
But what
so this is not a one-way street where you can just sit comfortably and say, why this? That school where food was being stolen, how are they going to feed the students?
But what quantity of the food?
No, I can't tell you. I mean, we run a major organization, 1,200 schools. I can't sit here and conjecture and tell you at this school this happened.
So my point is that the ones that were being stolen, even though they are wrong, they could have impacted the program.
No, I'm not telling you that there were no challenges, but for the most part, things worked the way it should be. But obviously, we may have challenges here and there, and that I accept. But I won't sit here and say there were no issues, there were no challenges. Yes, when you run a major program anywhere in the world, you're going to have challenges. But you have to be determined to deal with it and keep it going.
If you are the minister, how would you have solved it?
I will not make that conjecture. I'm not the minister. I'm the former Minister for Education. I'm not going to tell the minister what to do. I don't think that's fair to the new minister who have just come, and the former minister is sitting on TV telling him what to do.
Why don't you allow parents to even take charge of feeding?
I'm not going to make that conjecture, and I have to be clear with you. I'm not the Minister for Education. I've done my part, and I will not tell the current minister what to do. It's not fair to him. He's a seasoned politician.
Let's go to your time. Why didn't you allow parents to come into
I've finished it. I've done my work. It's over. I'm not going to look back and say, why couldn't this? No. Hindsight is 2020. I did it. We are building a nation together. The new minister, I will never tell him what to do. He's a seasoned politician. Haruna is a seasoned politician. I will allow him the space.
I'm not asking the question because of minister. I'm asking the question because of
I will not
country building. We are building that.
I will not say it. I will not. I choose to respond. I'm not responding. I'm not going to tell the new minister what to do. Haruna is a seasoned politician. He knows what to do.
Parents offered to feed their kids.
I'm not going to say that I've done what I had to do. The president had done a fantastic job. That is it. If you want the future, future is Haruna. And he's a seasoned politician.
Okay. Now, you said this on 2nd December 2024, and I quote, "We want to make sure that we enhance access to education at all levels, improve the quality of teaching and learning at all levels, and make education relevant to the economic transformation agenda of Ghana. When I sit at the Ministry of Education as a minister, my preoccupation is to ensure that we transform public education spaces," unquote.
Thank you for bringing that issue up.
Do you do it?
Yes.
You achieved this?
Yes. I started. And I did what had never been done before. 80 public schools open one day. Never happened before. Go to East Legon, Accra STEM Academy. Go and see that public school. Go to St. Barnabas, a school that was so dilapidated and run down that it was unconscionable to have children going to that school. I visited the school myself. I saw the level of dilapidation. And this is Osu in Accra. I was angry that this should not be happening, especially in Accra. Osu, the former seat of government, had such a level of dilapidation as in Barnabas that was unconscionable. By the time I was leaving, 8 months thereafter, we opened a new St. Barnabas school, beautiful. We had retrofitted. We had given them new furniture, new uniforms. The school was just like any private school anywhere in the world. And it's a public school. I believe that would not be fair to the Ghanaian worker. When people pay taxes and work, they should not be left to look for money to educate their children in private school because the public school is bad. I think it's not acceptable. After people pay taxes, this is the new St. Barnabas School at Osu, when it was commissioned.
Okay.
This school was in such a level of dilapidation that you don't expect in Accra.
Okay.
But we, the managers of the public education space, just looked on. And it wasn't a bother. We have become used to building rectangular shaped buildings painted brown and yellow, and we call them public schools. And the middle classes, we don't want it. But not wanting it means that they have to now borrow money to send their children to private schools, and it costs them arm and leg private school education. We, the owners of the taxes, the supervisors of the revenue that come to us, should do a better job. And that is what I began, and I'm always super proud of the work that we did in transforming public school spaces.
Okay.
The new public schools, the old ones that we rehabilitated. It's a testament for this nation to see that when you enter a space, transform it before you exit. So it's something that I will always be proud of.
What do you see of the future of Ghana's education?
What we did is there for the world to see. And I hope there will be a continuation of this, that more children will find themselves in spaces where St. Barnabas students are currently being educated. I hope that more transformed junior high schools will be seen in this country. And I hope that our march towards transformation of education through STEM will continue.
Okay.
And when that happens, we have created a more equitable nation. We have created a country whose education system will transform its socioeconomic fortunes. That 20 years from now, we look back and say we began and it was continuing, and we transformed the socioeconomic fortunes of Ghana through education. We did what the Chinese president did after visiting Japan. That is the nation that I hope we'll be able to create.
What do you think you'll be remembered for as a Minister of Education?
I hate telling people how to remember me, but I'll tell you this. I think people will say Dr. Adutwum came, invited by another Banco Akufo-Addo. He saw opportunity and took advantage of it and began the transformation of the Ghanaian education system.
Okay. Nana Ami here is watching us now. He says, what was the allocation made for feeding each student? I learned 1 cedis 97 pesos per student for 3 square meals per day. I currently pay 47 cedis for just lunch alone for my daughter at Roman Rich School. It's incumbent on new media people to interrogate the new minister, Haruna. Okay. So
it's not accurate.
It's not 1 cedi.
It's 7 cedi 50 pesos.
For a day?
Oh, yes.
3 square meals per day.
Yeah. It's not. Okay. What he's saying is not accurate. You see, people confuse high school feeding with the basic school feeding program, so maybe that's right.
Okay. I'm grateful to you for passing through us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the invite.
Right.
Thank you.
Dr. Adutwum, Yawa Adutwum, is Ghana's former Minister for Education, and